Chapter 14. Strangely enough, but not that strangely, I suppose, when I hit the sack at midnight, I fell asleep immediately. And I didn't wake until 8 in the morning. Precisely at 8, as I had come full cycle. I felt rested and hungry. So I went back to Dunkin' Donuts and then went for a walk around town. The streets were frozen solid, feather soft snow drifting quietly down, as ever the sky was heavy with clouds. Not exactly weather for a carefree stroll, but getting out was good for my spirits. The cold was bracing and cleared my head. I hadn't resolved a thing, so why a simple stretch should make a difference was curious. After an hour, I made my way back to the hotel. My receptionist friend was on duty at the front desk, together with a colleague busy with a guest. My friend was on the phone, smiling her professional smile, unconsciously twirling a pen between her fingers. I walked up and waited until she finished her call. She shot me a look of reproach, but she didn't let it interfere with her manual perfect professional smile. "How may I help you?" she asked politely. I cleared my throat. "Excuse me," I began, "but I heard that two girls were tragically attacked by an alligator at the swim club last night. Do you know if there is any truth to that story?" "Well, one never knows about these things, does one?" she replied, the fastidious artificial flower of her smile pinned in place. Her cheeks blushed slightly, her nostrils taut. "I can't say I know anything about it, sir. Excuse me, but are you certain that was the story you heard? It was a huge alligator by all accounts, the size of a Volvo station wagon. It came flying through the skylight, shattering glass everywhere, and it swallowed the two girls in one bite. And then it had half a potted palm for dessert. I was wondering if the creature was still at large. Do you think it's safe to go out?" "Forgive me," she broke in, without a flicker of change in her expression. "But have you considered contacting the police yourself, sir? I'm sure they would provide you with the most recent developments on the case. There's a police station not far from here. You might try asking there." "Thank you, I'll do that," I said. "May the force be with you." "Not at all, sir," she said coolly, adjusting her glasses. Not long after I returned to my room, she called. "Would you care to tell me what that was all about?" Her calm monotone scarcely disguised her anger. "You weren't going to do anything funny during business hours. Didn't I ask you that? I hate pranks like that when I'm working." "I just had to talk to you," I said apologetically. "I wanted to hear your voice. It was a dumb joke. I'm sorry. I only wanted to say hello. I really didn't mean to bother you. It's very upsetting. I told you that. When I'm on duty, I get tense. So please don't do anything like that again. You promised not to stare too." "I wasn't staring. I was just trying to talk to you." "Well then, from now on, no more talking like that, please." I promise. I promise. No talking, no staring, and no talking. I'll be as quiet as granite. But while I've got you on the line, are you free this evening, or do you have mountain climbing lessons tonight?" There was the sound of a dry laugh, half of it silence, and then she hung up. I waited for 30 minutes, but she didn't call back. I'd pissed her off. Sometimes people don't know when I'm kidding any more than when I'm being serious. At a loss for something better to do, I went out walking again. With luck, I might run into something new. Anyway, the idea of exercise seemed more appealing than sitting and doing nothing. May the force be with me. I walked for an hour and succeeded only in getting cold. The snow kept coming down. At 12:30, I popped into a McDonald's for cheeseburger and a Coke and fries. I didn't even know why. For reasons that escapes me, I sometimes just find myself eating this stuff. Maybe my physical makeup's been programmed for periodic ingestion of junk food. Maybe I did need a break today. After McDonald's, I walked for another 30 minutes. Still no major revelations. The snow picked up. The storm was getting fierce. I zipped my coat all the way to the collar and wrapped my scarf around my nose. Even then I was cold, and I had to take a lick. Why'd I have to go and drink a Coke on a day like this? I scanned the area for a place where I could use the toilet, but the only possibility was a movie theater, a real deadbeat establishment, but they had to have a toilet. And it was probably warm in there. Why not? I had time to kill anyway, so what was playing? A domestic double bill, one of which was Unrequited Love, and that movie starring my former classmate. Well, fancy that. After relieving myself at length, I bought a hot coffee and took it into the theater. The place was empty, as expected, and warm. It was 30 minutes into the film, but it was hardly like walking into a complicated plot. My classmate played a tall, handsome biology teacher, the object of a young girl's adoration. Predictably, she was gaga over him, practically fainting at the sight of him. And of course, there was this other guy who did kendo in his spare time, earnestly in love with her. Talk about an original concept. Hell could have written this movie. Even so, I had to admit, my classmate, whose real name was Ryoichi Gotanda, not exactly the stuff for making girls swoon. So he'd been given some dashing screen pseudonym, played his role with a little bit of complexity. Not only was he handsome and nice, etc., but he also exuded traces of a troubled past. Common garden variety wounds, to be sure. Maybe he'd been a student radical, or maybe he'd gotten a girl pregnant and abandoned her, but better than nothing. From time to time, the film would have these flashbacks, cut to actual footage of a student takeover of Tokyo University, inserted with all the subtlety of a monkey loving clay against a wall. Anyway, Gotanda played his part to the hilt, but the film was ludicrous, and the director such an obvious zero talent, and the script so embarrassingly infantile, with an endless succession of breathtakingly meaningless scenes and close ups of the girl, that Gotanda was doomed from the start. No matter how much real acting he did, you couldn't bear to watch. Then, at one point in the film, Gotanda's in the bed in his apartment on a Sunday morning with some woman when the girl who's in love with him shows up with homemade cookies or something. Good grief, I did write this movie. Gotanda's oh so sweet and slow and sincere in bed, close to what I'd imagined. It's a very nice sex. And he probably has very nice smelling armpits too. His hair has been mussed sensuously. He's caressing the woman's back. She's naked. The camera dollies around to zoom in on her, and suddenly I see her face. It's Kiki. I froze in my seat. I could hear the sound of an empty bottle rolling down the aisle. Unbelievable. This was the exact same image I'd seen in that dark corridor of the dolphin. Gotanda sleeping with her. That's when I knew we were all connected. That's the only scene Kiki appears in. Sunday morning in bed with Gotanda. That's it. Gotanda had gone to a bar on Saturday night, picked her up and brought her home. Then they fuck one more time in the morning. That's when his love-smitten pupil, the girl lead, enters. He's forgotten to lock the door. That's the whole scene. Kiki has only one line, and it's a pretty awful line at that. This is how it goes. Kick. What was that all about? After the girl lead runs out in shock and Gotanda's all in a daze, that's the line Kiki says. It wasn't even sure if it was her own voice. My memories of her weren't very clear, nor were the movie theater speakers too sharp on audio fidelity. I could remember her body, though, the shape of her back, the feel of her neck, her silky breasts. Yes, it was she, all right. I sat there riveted to my seat, staring at the screen. The scene couldn't have lasted more than a couple of minutes. Kiki's in Gotanda's embrace. She flows to his caresses. She closes her eyes in a state of bliss. Her lips tremble slightly. She lets out a little sigh. I can't tell whether she's acting or not, but let's suppose it's acting. This is a movie after all. Not that I believe for a moment that Kiki could act, which poses definite phenomenological problems. Suppose Kiki wasn't acting, then that meant she really was coming on to Gotanda's lovemaking. But if she was acting, then that meant she wasn't the woman I knew. She didn't believe in acting. She wasn't meant to act. Either way, though, I was burning with jealousy. First a swim club, now a stupid movie. Was I capable of getting jealous of anything? Was this a good sign? Now the girl lead opens the door. She catches sight of the two naked bodies embracing. She swallows her breath. She shuts her eyes. She turns and runs. Gotanda is stunned. Kiki says, "What is that all about?" Close up of Gotanda's dazed face and fade out. Aside from that cameo, Kiki appeared in no other scene. Forget the dumb plot. I was all eyes at the screen. And I know she wasn't anywhere. She was destined to be one night stand, witness to one fleeting scene in Gotanda's life before vanishing forever. That was her role. The same as with me. Suddenly she's there, she sees what there is to see, then she is gone. The movie ended, the lights came up, music played. I remained in my seat, transfixed by the blank white screen. Was this reality? The film was over, but I didn't get it. What was Kiki doing in a movie? And together with Gotanda, no less. Absurd. I must have been mistaken. Got the wrong circuit. Got my wires crossed somewhere. How else could I explain it? I walked around again for a while after leaving the theater, thinking about Kiki the whole time. What was that all about? She whispered into my ears. What was that all about? It had to have been her. It couldn't be a mistake. She'd made that same face when I made love to her. Her lips trembled like that. She'd sighed like that. That wasn't acting. No way. But this was a movie. It didn't make sense. The more I walked, the less I trusted my memory. Maybe the movie was a hallucination. An hour and a half later, I went back to the same movie theater and I watched Unrequited Love again from the beginning. Sunday morning, Gotenda is making love to a woman. The woman's back is to the camera doll is around, the woman's face comes into view. It's Kiki, plain as day. Enter the girl lead, who swallows her breath, shuts her eyes, runs, Gotenda dazed and confused. Kiki, what was that all about? Fade out. Exactly the same, down to the last detail. I'd seen it a second time and I still didn't believe it. Not at all. There had to be something wrong here. Why would Kiki be sleeping with Gotanda? The following day, I went to the movies again. I sat stiffly through Unrequited Love another time, waiting for that one scene, antsy and impatient. At last, the scene came up. Sunday morning, Gotenda is making love to a woman. The woman's back is to the camera, and the camera doll is around. The woman's face comes to view. It's Kiki, plain as day. Enter the girl lead, who swallows her breath, shuts her eyes, runs. Gotenda dazed and confused. Kiki, what is that all about? Fade out. There, in the dark, I let out a deep sigh. Okay, you win. This is real. There is no mistake. We are connected.